we're going to go through how to build a Corvette in No Man's Sky. There's a few things that I think tip-wise people will find useful, in particular build order, and maybe just a couple of interesting tidbits as we go through. To start with, all you need to do is come to one of these panels here. Now, if you come to one of the space stations, you should find that you have these teleporters over by the shops. When you enter one of those, it should bring you to one of these control panels, which is going to allow you to start building your first Corvette. When it comes to your first Corvette, what I recommend doing is purchasing a bunch of the basic models. In particular, you should probably just go ahead and get a cockpit, a hab, a landing gear. You could buy more than one engine if you wanted to be quicker. Buy a reactor and all of the basic pieces that you're going to need to build your first Corvette. That's because if I go into edit mine here and I just kind of delete everything so that we can start fresh, you can see up in the top right corner here, there are some minimum things that we need to be able to create our first Corvette. You want to make a basic one really quick because it is actually the fastest way to be able to farm extra parts. And being as we can edit it anyway, there's no reason not to just come on in and get your first Corvette built. Stick yourself a landing pad down, get any hab on top of it. It doesn't really matter where it goes, but I like to have the hab sticking out of the back. That way we can go ahead, we can put the cockpit on the front, we put ourselves an entrance on the back, and then we just fill in the slots as it tells us, right? I will touch on these a little bit more later on, but we're obviously just using mostly the main tab right now. So go ahead, get yourself an engine on there, as well as the reactor. You're also going to need a weapon. And with that, you're pretty much ready to rock and roll. Now, of course, we're not paying attention to too much here. You can just go ahead, exit. You can apply these edits to your ship, and that is going to go ahead and save it. Now, once you have that built, if you wish to, because this is editable, there is no reason not to immediately make it an S-Class or to put all of your storage slots on it straight away. As you can see, this is actually where I store all of my ship parts right now, whilst we're still in the building phase when it comes to the ship. And doing that is as easy as coming over to the outfitting station and upgrading it as you would any other ship. So if you come on over here and you have the augmentations, you can go ahead, put the augmentations on there, either get yourself some extra storage slots or some tech slots, whichever one you want. Now notice how much space the ship can take in your tech area. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later on. I think we can actually just about fit all of the different upgrades as well, all of the modules that we get from the shops, along with all of the tech. But just keep in mind, that is going to be a very busy tab for us. With that very basic Corvette complete then, my advice is to now take that Corvette to a planet and start to farm the parts. I have a video for that already, so if you want a link to that, that's going to be at the end of this one as the end screen. But you can either continue watching this so you can see the rest of it, or you can move on over to that video and then come on back to this one. Returning to our very basic looking Corvette, then let's look at some other things that you might want to pay attention to once you have more parts available. I want you to go back and take a look at the hab that we put up. These normal habs here, you can see they give 3 cargo as opposed to the single ones which give 1. The reason this is important is because items that give stats you'll only be able to use 3 of to be able to get the bonuses. What that means is if I put 3 of these down, you'll see that now we can no longer add more cargo slots to the Corvette. And that actually includes the small ones. So what that means is if we were to put 2 small pieces on here, and then now I want to continue building with some big pieces, I'm actually losing out on cargo space on my ship. So this is something that you want to make sure that you're bearing in mind as you are building your ship up. Therefore, if it is going to be a fairly sizable ship, you want to get your 3 2-tile habs down first, and then start building from there. This is the same for a lot of other parts as well, such as the thrusters. So if we look at this, you can see we've got 11 launch cost, 11 launch cost, and we've actually got 12 on the Thunderbird ones. So if you want to get the best bonus, you'd put this on. Now, something else that is rather strange is when we put 1 down, particularly with something like the thrusters, the others can actually change their values, although it doesn't seem like it's going to do it with the thrusters here. And as you can see, we've got 2 sets of thrusters down, and that is no longer giving us any stats to speak of. The same is obviously going to be the same of the engines as well. So not only do the engines look different, they are actually going to perform differently as well. And you can see that the value changes as we place them down. And if this is the same as the shields, the actual different ones will also change. So depending on the types of engines that you want to use, you may want to modify your build order when it comes to the engines. This is not the same for weapons. I actually find the weapons to be the most disappointing, mostly because of one thing, and that is, let's say these photon cannons here. I'm going to place these down, and these are basically going to give us a stat upgrade to a weapon. So if I put 3 of these down like this, that's going to give me all of the stat upgrades. Now, the annoying thing is, and I don't think I got a clip of it, but when you are firing this, only like the front one and one of the side ones is going to fire. So for me, it was like the front one and the left one, and then the right one wasn't even actually shooting, even though we are getting the stats from it. So you may want to build your vehicle accordingly, i.e. maybe you'll want to hide one of them so that it doesn't look quite so silly, because if you want to get the maximum stats, if you're a person that wants to min max, I know it's not necessary in No Man's Sky, but some people just like to see the bigger number. Just bear that in mind, that it's something that is going to be affecting your gameplay. Reactors are actually a little bit different to this. All of these reactors actually just give you bonuses separate to everything else. So that means if you want the most stats, you actually want to have 3 of each one on. So if I demonstrate this with the Seto class here, I can have 3 of these on top of my ship to have a massive shield bonus. And if I come and highlight over the next one, I can in fact still have 3 of these azimuth reactors on here if I wish to. I could go ahead and I could attach those in, and then we're going to get way more stat bonuses for that as well. This is why your ship can get pretty fun. Obviously, this looks silly, but I feel like this is just something that's worth knowing, because it means if you want to have the maximum best stats, then you are going to want to be building big or going home, basically. Shields are interesting because the game kind of edges us towards having 1 of each. You'll see, oh, we've got 10, 8, and 12. Now, I haven't tried every order. I kind of just followed the number order. So the deflector shield is going to give us 12. So if I put that on, you'll see that the next one gives 7. But now, if I put this one on next, that gives 12. And then if I look across again, we've got 10 and 10. So we could have a second deflector shield, because that would kind of look a bit better. At least we can make that symmetrical. So it could look something like this. And then that's going to give us the biggest shield bonus with all of the parts that were available. Now that we've gone over the core modules, which is mostly the important ones, and this is probably the one that you should focus on first. Get your ship operating and built in the way that you want it to be operating first, and then you can come on over to the structural decoration, which is exactly what it says on the tin. This does not affect your stats and is simply for decoration at the end. Pretty much the same can be said of the exterior decoration. All of this really does is nothing. You could add cargo capsules, so if for whatever reason you only wanted to have 1 hab on there, you could decide now that you're going to use cargo capsules instead. But you see, the issue is they're only going to give 1 each anyway, so you're actually still better off using the 2 berth capsule on there. Now, I just want to bring this part up because this is an interesting thing in that you can put something like a hab down, attach something to it, remove it, and then put something else there that you want it to attach to, as you saw a second ago. So I can actually have these attached to something that you wouldn't normally be able to attach them to. This is one of those weird things that I would never really use. I usually like to just do something really basic with my builds. But if you want to make something interesting, I mean, I suppose you could actually make that look kind of interesting as it is. You could have like a long thing on there, make it look like it's got some weird legs, some kind of robot. That's not really for me. So let's have a go at building something. I am not the most artistic, so I have no idea whether or not this is going to come out okay. We're just going to go ahead and try and build something. If I don't like it, I can always just revert back to my old one, so I am not really too worried. My little battleship I thought was kind of cool, so I think what I want to do is start out with 2 of the landing pads. I'm probably going to take these back off because I much prefer the legs, or at the very least I would probably take them off and then add the legs so that I can have the stats from them. You can see that the middle is where the cross is. The cockpit is probably going to end up over there, and it's kind of cool that they've given us these markers on the ground. So we know that our cockpit is probably going to end up this way, and this is going to be kind of the center of the ship. I don't intend for it only to be 1 wide, so I think I kind of want to have a couple of feet out this way. Okay, so with that done, I am going to now start filling in the habs. I really like the inside of the ambassador set. If you wanted a recommendation from me, that's the one that I'm going to suggest. I'm going to make like a little indenture here in the middle because I like to have my entrance kind of be inside the middle of the ship. So I'm going to go with the Titan class, even though it's kind of a little bit weird. It's just going to give us a nice little flat bit to go in, and I'm probably going to end up extending these out backwards a little bit. So let's do that. In the greatest likelihood, this is how my shape is probably going to be at its core. We may do some kind of upper part, so let's go ahead, just so that we have an upstairs, add some more habs to the top. I guess for some people this might be a little bit enclosed, but that's kind of just how I like it. And because this is probably going to basically be the entrance to the ship, I'm going to extend that out by 1, and then I want to have the cockpit on the end of that. So far, the Thunderbird class cockpit is my favorite. And you can see the game gives us quite a bit of space to work with. In fact, we can pretty much go all the way out to the yellow circle. From here, I'm going to put my Seto class reactors along the top. I like these generally being in a line because I like the way the cylindrical stuff lines up, which means I probably need to put a bit more space on the back. So let's do that. Now, if you don't want to use too many halves, you can use something like a reinforced hull if that fits the aesthetic that you want to use, but I have plenty of halves, so I'm just going to continue using that. That way we have a nice inside to work with. This is a good idea because we can make a lot of storage inside, so we can link the Corvette to the storage containers on the freighter, and I find that pretty useful, and you are going to need a lot of space if you want to do that. And I think I actually want the third one to be on the same level, so I'm going to add an extra one right here. Now, hopefully, I don't end up running into the build limiter because we do only have 100 slots that we can use on the ship. Luckily, we're using all big parts, so whilst this looks massive, we aren't actually using up all that many parts. I like it to look kind of aggressive, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move these pads back one because I'm going to put some missiles under there because I think it looks cool. So something on the weapon systems, for whatever reason, it seems like they need to be connected to a hab or something solid behind them. So for example, if I decide I'm going to remove this, you'll see that it moves out of the way. This can be a way to get things into the wrong place. But something else is that if I put something like a cowling on here, it doesn't let me attach the missile to the cowling. This is annoying if you want to have like underslung missiles on your ship because it makes it kind of difficult to put it on some of the wings. Some of them will take it, but some of them won't, and I just think that's a little bit weird. Although it will take it at the back, so I guess maybe you could do something like that. Just be a bit careful about this. Another good thing to note, if you have a two-tier cowling like this on top of something flat, you can often clip things inside of it. So for example, I can probably put that weapon inside of the cowling. And there is a particular weapon that I like to do this with. I take these two off. I'll be able to show you guys that you can use the turbine cowling here, and then you can put the missile inside of it. So it kind of looks a bit like a launcher, which I also thought was pretty cool. The weapons also work pretty well. So if the phase beam array also comes looking out of there like a weapon. It looks a bit fixed, so it doesn't look like it can turn, but the ship fires pretty much in a straight line anyway, so I guess that's not the worst. I feel like I'm going a bit slow there, so let's get this show on the road. Obviously, we need some cowling on top of there because we don't want that to look like that. Even though you could put a window on the front, I guess we don't really go with that kind of thing. I do like the look of the fuel cells on the front, so we'll go with that. Additionally, make sure you're always looking at the controls on the bottom. Depending on the part that you have, you can flip them in different ways. For example, if I use this Vespa piece, you'll see that we can actually flip it horizontal as well as flip it upside down. Some pieces actually have more variety than others. In this case, I could probably do something like have that go there and then have another one on top of it like that, if I was the kind of person that likes that kind of detailing at the front of my ship. I'm not saying that looks great. I'm just saying if that's something that you would want on yours, it makes it a little bit easier to get those rounder looking shapes on your ship. But realistically speaking, what you should probably do first is get all of the hard points and stats that you want on the ship, and then we'll decorate after. Okay, so we're going to cut in a little bit ahead. We're looking very rocket shippy right now, which I do kind of like. So let's just bring this back a little bit here. So I've gone with this big engine on the back, which I think goes nicely with this large looking fuel cell. I'll obviously have to cover this back end up a little bit so it doesn't look so exposed. So we'll get some cowling and stuff around that as we go forward. Then I've gone with the two larger ones on the sides. So I'll probably use something like the fuel cells on the back. That kind of is going to look, hopefully, like we are fueling the two rockets with the fueling from there and the main one from the front. I'm sure this is vulnerable on like a battleship style thing, but we're not doing this for realism. We're doing this for a bit of fun. In any case, I'm going to continue moving forward and I'll cut in once we've continued adding in parts. Alright, so I'm cutting back in again, and I'm quite liking how it's looking actually. It's looking quite aggressive. I ended up using the Vespa cowling. It did allow me to put it straight on top of the engine, and you can't really see in there, which is kind of nice. So it looks like mostly strong structure unless you look really closely in. And it did allow me to put the extra bits of cowling on the sides, so we can have some gunnery back here. I'm not sure that I'm entirely sold on it yet, so I'm not saying this is a final part of the design. This was a point where I just thought, if somebody's got like a plain piece and they want something like this to have line of sight and they want to still decorate stuff, a good call for this is the air purifier, because as you can see on here, you'll be able to put this along the top and then it won't look quite so plain and allow you to still have it be decorated without having to mess up the design that you're going for. Now then, something that I am an absolute sucker for is these feet, mostly because when you're flying, these are going to turn, and these are going to give us lots of cool, pretty light as we're flying. I think the limit on the amount of engines that'll light up is 9. I could be wrong, but if you put loads all over, like you can put extra on, they won't give you stats, but it will look nice. But I believe there's a limit. I had like 2 that wouldn't light up on mine, so just bear in mind that we can't have as many engines on there as we might like, or at least we can have them on, but if you want it all to be lit up and looking good, you will have to consider that. And here's an example that might annoy you. So if you're trying to make some like normal wings on your vehicle, this is where maybe you want to have this look a bit like an Apache, right, where you've got weapons on the underwings or something like this. If I do that, even though it shows green, look, this is not considered connected because it's not on one of these main body parts. It's just something I thought I'd show before we finish out the video. All the shields, I know this is kind of awkward to do, but I like to put them underneath. So we've got the first one there. I place the next one, and then I put the other one under this way. I don't think I'm going to keep this one here, but if we do want to move it, we just have to press R2 on it, or whatever your button is, and then we can move that to wherever its new home is going to be as we continue building. Pretty big jump here. I decided I really wanted to have the Medusa engines on. Now the problem is I don't actually have space for 3. We've got 2 on. Because that was in front, I decided I'd move the weapons on here, and because the hyperdrive reactor core kind of looks a bit construction-y, I decided I'd make it look like that was holding up some of this fairing stuff, put a little bit of stuff behind it like that, so we've just got a little bit more filling in there, and the weapons can actually go on top as well. That kind of works for me. Weapons look nice and powered. We've got the weapons on there. We've got 2 missiles. We don't really need all 3 of them on, and I got the weapons underneath at the front as well, so we're looking pretty aggressive, fairly decently exercised as well. We just need to fill in the side bits and make the back look a little bit better, and we're pretty much there. I'm no artist, so I concede this is not the greatest work of art you're ever going to see on YouTube. I'm pretty happy with it, actually. I think it came out looking better than the one that I had before. Technically, it's missing a couple of weapons off of it. I haven't fit on one of the photon cannons and one of the rocket launchers. I just don't have a 3rd spot, right, to keep it anywhere near symmetrical. I could just like bolt them onto the side or something, but I don't want to do that. So I'm quite happy with this. Let's talk about changing colors. For me, it's the touchpad. You can see up in the top left. When you want to change color, you press the button. It's very simple. Pick a color palette that you like the look of. I usually actually like black and yellow, so I guess orange and black could be good. And then you can change how that coloration looks. Once that's done and we return, you'll see now, if we look at another piece, the symbol changes. That means now if I press the button, it's actually going to change the color scheme of the parts of the ship. By doing this, I can very quickly get around and just recolor the ship to the colors that I like to have. And there we have it. The wasp color scheme has been applied. I'm just going to have a quick lay. You have to be a little bit careful. When you have these on, these are actually going to lift up and become rockets. I can't remember how high they come, so I kind of just want to have maybe like a wing or something that comes on this top layer. And I think I'm about there. I'm pretty happy with this. The only real bit that's weak is probably this part. Maybe I could shorten this off slightly, but I really want to make sure we've got the space for the weapons underneath. So I'm kind of happy with how it looks from the front. That's not too bad. I like the color scheme. We've got everything on there. We've got some batteries. I didn't talk much about the cowling that I used at the back, but we just kind of flipped a load of it around just to make it look nice and complete, so it doesn't look like the engine's coming out of thin air, and it looks like we're fueling the engine with a ton of stuff, which is helping the ship to move. Of course, at this point, we want to apply the edits to the ship, and at this point then, you may want to take a look at where all of the stuff has landed on your starship. As you can see from here, there are plenty of upgraded spaces that you can use to improve your ship's stats and all of this. Obviously, just make sure you're using that to your advantage. I'm obviously not going to be optimizing that right here. Again, you're going to want all of the modules and stuff so that you can get all of the maximum stuff out of it. Although apparently I don't have... How do I not have rust? Let's see what happens if we apply this. Now, I had a fault, and I think this is still quite a buggy system. So if you do have bugs, put them in the comments. Maybe someone will be able to help you out. I have one that I fixed personally. I had an issue where I would set the ship up, and for some reason, all of these doors would be closed. There would be no doors. It would just have like a blockage here, and it wouldn't let me to the cockpit. The way to fix that was to just fast travel to a different space station. It reset itself, and then it was fine. We're going to talk about decorating the interior in a second. So let's go ahead. Fly. Is it going to give me my stats now? It is. There we go. So as you can see, we've got everything all working. I can now show you what I mean about the shooting of the weapons. Although that actually was pretty good. But you can see it's not using the one at the bottom. I bet the thing is that it uses the first 2 that you place. So maybe bear that in mind as you are editing your ship. That ends up looking pretty good, actually. And as you can see on the sides, all of the thrusters from the landing gear have turned to the side. There's no clipping. Is there any clipping? There might be a little bit. Let's put photo mode on. I don't want it to be like all mega weird. We got a little bit there. I think I can forgive myself for that. Maybe like I could, if I wanted, like cut a piece in down there and then like bring the rockets out a bit more. But it is good just to see it in flight so you can see where everything is. I got a bit of painting to do there, look. But overall, I'm pretty happy with that. There's the battleship. But as you can see, we've got tons of space to use as well. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and place one of these. It's actually not in the PlayStation that I would like. I'm probably going to redesign this a bit more now. And as you can see, this is how we're going to get to the next floor, which has some extra space for me to use as well. Now, of course, when it comes to decorating in here, don't be intimidated by the doors. Unfortunately, we can't place doors, which is unfortunate, but you'll have a lot of things that can fill them in. So if I didn't want a door there, I could just put some whatever else I want there, and that'll fill the door in. So you can kind of make it all your own thing. My main thing that I like to do is I like to put all of the storage stuff out of the way, and then I like to have this be like my captain's quarters. So I'll have something like a bed, which doesn't actually do anything. I just like it being there. I like using the flat panel that you can see to be like a TV. That way, all we need to do is change that color to black. There we go. Got a nice flat screen TV. I'll get myself a chair down here. But you guys don't need to see every little thing that I do in here. This is all going to change a little bit because, like I say, I kind of want to maybe extend it out backwards a little bit. I kind of do want it to be a little bit bigger. But that's the basics on decorating the inside of your ship. Plenty that you can do with it, which is nice and cool. You can even have things like a weapon rack and all that good stuff. And the last thing that I want to do is show you guys where it is on the freight. I saw a few comments of people saying that they were struggling to find it, so I figured we'd go over this. All we need to do is go back to where all of your ships normally are on the freighter. From where you teleport down, you actually want to jump over the rail and then come onto the back bit here, where you'll see that we have this teleporter. This is how you get back onto your ship whenever you are on your freighter.